202, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben. Glad we're having this conversation.
Hey, what's going on? Is it Solomon?
Yes, it is.
Solomon. Okay, man. You sound different on the phone versus in the hangout. What's going on, man?
Well, I've seen this conversation start to sprout up. The other place I saw was the majority report today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finally starting to hear arguments that make sense for this, even while I've still had my doubts, even before Bernie ran. Like, I had doubts about this whole movement of gun manufacturer liability. Like, when that attack came against Bernie, I thought the Bradley bill one, where he voted against the Bradley bill a couple of times, made more sense. The gun manufacturing one never really, like, I never really got the point. The argument for that lawsuit in some context could be made, but the argument I had heard as, like, we're going to take down the gun lobby through this the same way we took down the cigarette, the tobacco lobby.
Yep.
I was like, those are two completely different situations. And the majority report had a comparison saying the reason we should get rid of their special
immunity,
their special liability exemptions, which I do believe they should be treated the same as products in most cases, as regular products in most cases. But the argument he used, which I thought was better than I heard in other places, was if you have like Tylenol or like medication, there's a bottle protector to prevent toddlers from being able to use that and open it, specifically because lawsuits against happened before that was in place, and that pushed safety precaution measures to happen to prevent children from like opening a bottle and throwing them all in their mouth and poisoning themselves. And I thought that was the first time I'd heard a cogent argument other than we're just going to use this to go against the gun lobby.
Right.
And I thought that made some sense. I think guns are a little different there's still differences between firearms and
medication,
pill bottles and other types of things you could use.
Yep.
I would say one argument you can make for something not quite what they're doing, but something similar would be using the like seatbelt standards, or as technology improves for cars, there might be legislation requiring automatic braking in cars in a few years. That's a thing that could happen very soon in all future cars being made. You could
let me jump in there and ask you this. Let me jump in there and ask you this real quick.
The fingerprint lock triggers and other types of locking.
Let me turn that up. Can you hear me?
To prevent the type of accidents that we've heard about toddlers.
Solomon, can you hear me?
And shooting their foot or their friends or their parents or whatever with them.
Yeah. Solomon. Pause there. Can you hear me? Okay, this is what I want to ask you. I want to ask you this. How many ways can you imagine making cars safer? Just random, just throw out a number or infinite, whatever. How many ways can you imagine making guns safer? Making cars safer.
Making cars safer? Automatic braking, automatic driving.
Let's say you could come up with 25 ways, right? How many ways can you make guns safer?
Like, other than finger locks, and in that context, like, you can't make the Hillary Clinton argument like, well, Sandy Hook wouldn't happen if this lawsuit had forced fingerprint locking. No, it probably would have still happened. What would have happened is things like the toddler shooting their parent in the leg wouldn't happen as often, which is an important issue that needs to be stopped, but that's not as politically sexy, and she can't use that to bring up Sandy Hook for the Connecticut primary in a few weeks. So that's the argument she went with, that somehow a legally bought gun by this kid's mom, maybe if she locked it so she didn't use it, but she bought it for him. I don't know the context of how that will work. And then the argument for the lawsuit has always been iffy for me. Like, I don't even see how what judge, even if you took it up to the Supreme Court, would accept the arguments that they're using for
now, and here's the problem. Here's the problem, Solomon, is that we're in this position where, I'm personally all for the victims in this case. I'm personally all for anything and everything that we can do to get guns, make guns safer and get guns out of the hands of criminals and really get assault weapons off the street. I'm all for that. However, is this are lawsuits in general the mechanism to get that done. And I like what you're saying from the majority report is they seem to be arguing the same point that the guy whose blog I just can't find while I'm in the middle of the air. The argument that he made was lawsuits really push the ability to force manufacturers to make things safer. But is there any safety that can be put into a gun that would have stopped Sandy Hook?
Yeah, and like the only one that's brought up is the fingerprint locking thing. And the thing is, from anything I've read on that topic, gun manufacturers are perfectly okay with adding fingerprint locks because a gun that they make is a gun that they make. It doesn't matter if a fingerprint lock, doesn't matter if it doesn't. They're making a sale, but whatever type of gun they're selling, it's the unique, weird cultural thing that a lot of Americans have with guns is that when gun manufacturers made them, there was that case, I think, was it in Pennsylvania or Maryland, where a gun shop was starting to sell them, and he got death threats from random members of lobbying groups and just like these weird patriot groups saying you have to take those off the market because it's like some rule that said if he started selling them for a certain amount of time, there was a statute that the state law said all of them had to be sold this way. That really wouldn't affect gun manufacturers' profits in any way. They just switch and would make the same margins. But
Solomon, I got to cut you off there, man. I got to cut
culture.
Solomon
is so weird.
Solomon, I got to cut you off there, man. I hate to cut you off there, but I got to grab the next call. 857-600-0518. I see a lot of people want to join the conversation, so I'll keep that.